Yeah.
You know what? I'll speak about that. I'll speak about that now. I've actually got some notes up, and what I actually want to clarify on this, because there's a lot of people, and I know it's just Twitter, but there's a lot of people online saying, well, it serves them right for spending so much money when they got to Wembley. This was under Keith Hill. When they got to Wembley, they just one of these teams now have come to the National League and they've overspent. We have not done that. We have not overspent. We have never been a club to overspend. We have been a club that really do manage our finances, and especially under Chris Dunphy as well, when Keith Hill was in charge, we have always been a club who other clubs look to, and we have been like that club that people kind of base themselves, because we bring on the youth, we kind of get free transfers, and then we build them up and kind of sell them on. Our youth players, as I mentioned, like your Luke Matheson, we had Callum Camps, we had Andy Cannon, we've had Jamie Allen, Fabio Tavares, we've had Quadro Bar as well. All these youth players who we've kind of brought through our academy and sold on. Where it has hit us, obviously, like other clubs, is COVID. It has really took its toll on us. The COVID season, which I'm not like saying, oh, it's only hit Rochdale. It's not. It's only Rochdale who it's hit. Many other clubs have, but that on top of obviously then in League One getting a relegation hit us massively, and then a hostile takeover. Sorry, I've got notes up because it is that much to talk about. A hostile takeover, which thank God didn't go through. But obviously that was happening, and this was just after the COVID season. That was then happening, and there was obviously people linked to clubs, Charlton, who wanted to take them over. I'm not going to name names. Charlton, there was names who have been linked with Swindon before we wanted to take over, and just bad businessmen who was associated with football clubs who obviously wanted to get involved with ours. Our CEO, our ex-CEO, David Bottomley, who was also linked to all the shenanigans going on. He was partly to do with it. So us being fan-owned, we had to get these people off the board, and the Dale Trust and the rest of the shareholders, because we are fan-owned and it is due to shareholders, had to get these people off the board. So this is where our now chairman, Simon Gage, has come into it. He was elected to go on the board. He then obviously, and some of the Dale Trust and these people on the board voted for these toxic people. Also, he was obviously involved in the club, and when we kind of knew what was going on, they voted them off the directors' board. And then Simon Gage then brought his own men onto the board of directors, and will forever be thankful for them. But obviously, there were legal things going on to try and fight off this hostile takeover. And this is where a lot of our money difficulties have come from, because the money used to kind of fight these men off and fight this hostile takeover off, these legal fees, this is where it's kind of took its toll on us from the football perspective, because we've not really been able to, at that point, we weren't able to really concentrate on the football because we had that going on at the back of our minds. So that's been a massive hit, like on the pitch, and then obviously everything going on off the pitch. That's what's hit us. And then, as I mentioned, Simon Gage took over and stepped up at the time when we really needed him, and we'll obviously, as Rochdale fans, be forever grateful for him. I mentioned obviously the money we spent on legal fees, and it's took its toll on the football side. And then obviously poor managerial appointments. And this is where I think as well, as much as obviously they've done us absolutely brilliant, and I don't want to badmouth obviously Simon Gage and the board of directors, I think it kind of shows the lack of experience as well of running the football club, but also maybe their choices, because Robbie Stockdale and the contract we're giving him, you've just been relegated. And I know we didn't have lots of money, but you're kind of putting it on an inexperienced manager who's not really proved himself. So that, I think, was just as much as you want to be like, we did it with Keith Hill, and sometimes it can work out, I think that was a bad choice upon himself. We've not really been one to have mega budgets, which we haven't. We've never been that club. But this board of directors, obviously, Simon Gage has mentioned in his previous interviews before, this was one of the biggest budgets from a Rochdale perspective. I'm not saying it can compete with some of the other ones in the league, but when we're in League Two and gave Robbie Stockdale that budget, it's given an inexperienced manager one of the biggest budgets that we've given anyone in that league. So obviously that's a red flag as well. And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But obviously he bought the likes of Tavon Campbell, who I mentioned, James Balls, and it just didn't really work out from there. And we just had a few like toxic players from that perspective as well, who just kind of, it just shown that there weren't really much effort going on the pitch as well. And it was kind of a Rochdale that we didn't really recognise, because we have been known to being like a really family club where the players and the fans are like kind of as one, where the club is kind of all as one. We've never been like fans against players and managers and board against all this. But the last few seasons, it's just been really awful like that. So that's another part to play on it. And then obviously we gave Robbie Stockdale that budget in January. And then obviously we didn't have a very good finish, but we thought, right, inexperienced manager, we'll try and give him like more time. So we gave him a pre-season, we gave him summer to do whatever he wanted as well. Obviously, we had a really bad start, and this was the season we were relegated from League Two. We had a really bad start in that season, and 4 games into the season, after giving him a really big January transfer window, we gave him the summer, a pre-season, we decided to sack him. So that for me as well just thinks, well, it's a bit inexperienced, so why did we do that? And you can kind of understand giving it him in January, let him have the season through. But why let him then have the summer, the pre-season, to just go and sack him then 4 games in? You either sack him before or you give him more time to try and gel with these players, because you've just brought in a load of new players. Why then sack him just 4 games in? And then obviously fans were like, oh, we're going to get Keith Hill back, bring Keith Hill back, which I don't know whether it'd be the right thing to do. I don't know. Obviously, a lot of things went on with Keith Hill, and our fans were convinced we were getting him back. Turns out they bring Jim Bentley in, who I'm gonna actually, in one respect, kind of defend Jim Bentley, even though our fans don't really and weren't particularly fond with him, because I think whoever we brought in next had a lot to do. And obviously, I think Jim Bentley, we didn't have a budget to obviously get in someone like, we were linked with Graham Alexander, Artel, and people like that. And you automatically think, we're not going to get someone like that. Someone's not going to want to come to Rochdale like that. And I think Jim Bentley was just kind of came to us, and I didn't ever see it working with Jim Bentley. And I don't mean to be awful. I just think with everything that was going on, and he just kind of took that job at such a bad time, and there was just so much going on. So I want to defend him in that aspect. He brought us Danny Lloyd, who obviously we loved, and he's shown us glimpses of that in that season. He got us through that season because obviously it weren't a good time last season. And then obviously we sacked Jim Bentley. We've obviously had to pay him compensation, Robbie Stockdale compensation. So that I do blame the board for, because I think it's just lack of decisions and inexperience. So that I do blame them for, and some of the decisions. But all in all, and some of the Rochdale fans might not agree with me in this, but we are fan owned, and it's all shares. So we've got different shareholders. We've always had this structure of being fan owned at Rochdale. So obviously no charlatans can come in and kind of run the club into the ground, which, yes, for some teams like abroad, it does work. Like you see Germany and the structure in Germany, and you've seen teams there work. But we're Rochdale Football Club, and as much as it has worked previously, we are struggling financially as an economy as well. Like in the world, we are struggling. In England, we are struggling financially. We don't have money. The COVID's obviously affected everyone. Cost of living's affected everyone, and just the whole fan-owned structure now, I think we do need to get away from. And a lot of our fans might give me grief for this, but I think Simon Gage tried, because there's our fans at the minute are split. So you have some of the older generation who have only seen Rochdale as fan owned, and then you obviously have the like younger generation who want investment. Like they've seen a lot of the good times under Keith Hill, and they're hungry for obviously achieving and fulfilling things. They've obviously seen the good times more, and they've obviously seen football evolve more. Like in a newer generation, and they want obviously investment. Simon Gage has obviously tried to keep it as a shareholder, fan-owned way, and obviously trying to get fans to buy shares. But it's got to the point now where he's actually come out in an interview and said we are asset rich because we own our ground, we own the like bars and everything within the ground, so we are asset rich. But like financially, we are poor because we've come to a point now where he has put money into the club. He's obviously took loans out himself. He's put his own money into the club, but he can't keep pumping money into the football club anymore and the football side of it because obviously he hasn't got them finances now. Obviously, we're a fan-owned club and shareholders, but they can't pump their money into the club as well. And I think they have called now this EGM because they're trying the best now to kind of plead to these shareholders and have a vote to try and get past being this fan-owned shareholders club, because we have had people coming in with interest towards Rochdale Football Club. Apparently people do want to invest in us, but they don't just want shares, they want obviously more. If they're pumping their money into it, they want to kind of have like a more of a majority like say in it rather than just like a shareholder and only have a percentage. From what I've heard, I believe there is people who are interested in obviously becoming investors in our football club, but they don't want to.
Can I just ask you a question about that just while you've just mentioned it? So I know obviously at the moment it's fan owned, but what's been the general kind of consensus about maybe moving away from that if it's something that's going to help the club?
We've always been where it's been like shareholders who have there's been more shareholders than just like a majority like kind of owner who owns it all, and it's just got to the point now like where we just can't sustain like financial needs in the football side of it, like just being fan owned because and shareholders, because as we've seen like from this situation now with Simon, and to be fair to him, there's a lot of our fans who obviously have issues with him, and I'd get it from one point of view, like I've mentioned the inexperienced side of it, but I think he's jumped in and saved the club from obviously this hostile takeover, which I'll forever be grateful for. I feel bad for him in one aspect as well, because obviously it just kind of jumped into like a sinking ship at that point, because obviously there was so much going on. It's kind of like saved us from that. And then obviously just the choices and the inexperience on the football side of it, I think, kind of cost us. And this obviously the money situation. But I think with him as well, he's literally said, I put everything into it, like the money he's got, and just being fan owned on this side, we can't compete with people budget side of it, and it's got to a point now where we've just got no funds coming in. He's tried to remortgage the ground to try and get cash that way, you know, to try and give us like quite a big sum of cash that way from it and then pay it off. But National League rules are apparently different to EFL rules as well, so we couldn't do that. we've got a loan from the council. And obviously we owe money to Simon Gage, and he's come out in interviews and said, we're not actually in that much debt. Like, he's come out and said we're a good deal, because I think it's $1 million, just under $1 million that we have debt wise, which isn't that bad considering, some of the other clubs. We own our ground, as I've mentioned as well. So we are quite an appealing like club to someone, like from that aspect. It's just obviously we need to kind of get to the point now and move forward as a fan base and agree together that we can't sustain being like this anymore, or obviously we liquidate at the end of the month. That's a fact now. Don't get me wrong, we could get someone in who we've seen from other football clubs in like Wigan, you've got Reading, situations like that. We might get an owner who might do that in a few years, but if that's in a few years' time, we might get an owner who'll be absolutely great and want to pump money into the club and kind of build something up. And you never know, we might just get someone who's just steady and steadies the ship, like with Chris Dunphy back in the day, and obviously under Keith Hill, where you see glimpses of cup runs, you see glimpses of like maybe playoffs and kind of them achievements. But I just think as a fan base now, and as much as I wanted like stability, like being fan owned, like you always think you've got that stability, but then I think to myself, we've got no stability if we're going to be liquidated. So we need to just move on and get out of this like fan owned now, because we can't do it. We've proved that we can't do it.
I've got quite a extensive opinion on the whole fan-owned money side of football. I'll try and keep it as short as possible, because I'm sure everyone has their own kind of opinions on it. But the way football works now, modern-wise, and you can tell by what you mentioned in terms of the divide on the opinion of the ownership, clubs they can't run as fan-owned anymore. There's not enough money coming in, and you bring in the aspect of, like you mentioned, the tough times that everyone lives through financially anyway, and people can't justify putting money in the club, which is entirely understandable. And Newport have just went through it, and it's why I quite I sympathise with it quite a lot, because Newport lost their club in terms of 1989, but I won't. I wasn't around to experience that, but just the thought of losing a club for anyone is heartbreaking. And I think at this point in terms of modern football, the way you kind of have to do it at very bare minimum, I think this is the way that satisfies most people, is a hybrid model, to where you've still got these shares from the fans, but then you've got someone who comes in and pumps money into the club and hopefully knows what they're doing. Obviously, Rochdale in the National League, I think the EFL have started to really justify and actually enforce the fit for purpose module when it comes to ownership, because of the situations at Reading and Wigan and everything. And we got taken over a couple months ago now, and it took us like 6 months for it to go through. And one of the first paragraphs, one of the first sentences was that it was done because it was thoroughly checked through to make sure the guy who went in for the club had the right intentions. So, we're very much different, because we're very fortunate to have had the cup runs. We haven't made too much movement in terms of management and rush decisions and all that kind of stuff. So we were really fortunate in the way that we could, survive to live on it. But I think that, like you said, the relegations from League One and then, from League Two really didn't help, because you see a lot of teams that get relegated from League Two and they're not built to survive in the National League. Whether you mention that the rules are different when it comes to mortgaging out your stadium, whether the rules are different with the kind of money that you're allowed to, spend and move around, it's different. And just by default, you aren't going to get as much money from just kind of taking part in the National League season as opposed to the EFLs. It's a really tough one, isn't it? Because you're at a point where, it was bluntly put in the statement, and I think it is, as much as it's really harsh, it's better that it was put blunt in the statement that we are facing liquidation in the next month. And the issue is, and I really hope it isn't going to be an issue, but you've seen a lot of clubs in the past who may be fan owned, may be owned by people who, you know, just didn't work out with the club. And they've obviously been desperate to change ownership. They've been desperate to get somebody in to put money into the club. And like you mentioned there, you could have someone who is interested in buying the club because it could be valued as cheaper because of the, you know, the situations regarding the club and the kind of, you know, situation it's currently left in. And they could be completely fine for the next year or two. And then you can all of a sudden see them switch in the, you know, the aspect of benefit in their own pockets. But, you know, the hope is, and I think when reading the statement and seeing all the news come out, it looks like the people who are interested in investment hopefully actually have the right intentions of, you know, balancing the books, actually putting, you know, some more money in the club, more than the fans could have done in terms of shareholders. And hopefully, and I think this is really important when you come to football ownership, as opposed to just throwing money into the club, I think, and this is why I'm really excited for Newport's ownership, because of what Hugh Jenkins did with Swansea. He made the club financially stable on its own. So he got new commercial partners in, you know, he branched out the ability for the club to make revenue in unique ways that you may not think about as a fan-owned club. It's a very, you know, it's a difficult situation as a neutral to read, because again, it's bluntly put, isn't it? It's really harsh that if nothing changes in the next month, that's kind of that. And I suppose that's not the correct term. That's that, because you've seen clubs come back from, you know, that kind of adversity. But I can only imagine the kind of, you know, experience you've had over the past couple of days, because, you know, I could never live with the idea of losing my club. And thankfully, you know, from the tweets that have come out in the past 2 days or so, it looks a little bit more positive, and it looks like someone or people are going to come in and give offers and hopefully will steer the club back in the right direction. But, you know, I wish Rochdale, wish you all the best in terms of that regard. And I think we need to say the same to Torquay as well, because, you know, they've bluntly put it as well. I think they have to have the, you know, the same kind of principle. And they're very much in the same boat, aren't they? So, you know, best wishes to both clubs.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, to a lot of people, you know, you've got people that are earning a living playing for those clubs, and obviously that's one side of it. But more than that, you've got the people that, you know, that survive the weeks to go to the football and see their friends, see the football team, get outside, and go and do something that they enjoy. And everybody deserves to keep the football club. So some way, somehow, you know, Rochdale have been a club for so long, you might see the odd thing where people are like, ha ha ha, but it's not for me. Nobody deserves to lose a football club. So I just hope that something is done. And, you know, from what was it Michael? From what he was saying earlier, it sounds like there's some positive noises. So hopefully that's something that, you know, that can happen, because our Shah deserves to go and watch Rochdale, and we you know, we look forward to your rants.
I'm hoping, though, because I know there is a lot of like people who obviously have only known us fan owned, and I don't want them to be stubborn about it, because at the end of the day, it is in writing that we could be liquidated by the end of March. So take a chance, and then if it happens I'm not saying it is going to happen, but you've got to take the chance. This could happen at the end of next month, whereas if these people vote, obviously, and allow it to become like a different structure, it gives us more time. We could be better off, we could be worse off, but at least we'll be a club, at least we'll still be Rochdale. Do you know what I mean? And this is what I'm like begging people. And I didn't want it to kind of, at one stage I wanted it because I wanted it to be stable and stuff. But this has proved that we're not stable being fan owned, because it's come to this. So I'm just hoping the shareholders do kind of allow
At the end
it
of
now.
the day, you need to think about it logically, and to put it quite bluntly, like, fan owned or not owned, like, someone needs to come in and invest. And if that means losing the fan ownership for the security of your football
club, our club.
Exactly.
Please build a Rochdale.
The thing is, there's been, you talk maybe one circumstance of fan owned actually being sustainable. You maybe talk 2 or 3, but it's just the way modern football works. It costs so much more to just be a club in this environment, and it doesn't benefit that we're in a situation where it costs a lot to kind of just exist as people at the end of the day, and having to have that extra responsibility isn't going to work. And I got a message from one of the people that regularly tune into this. I can't remember his name for the life of me at the minute, but I'm sure it'll come into my head during this. But he said to me, why didn't the EFL get involved, and why didn't they notice it was going on? Because it's been relatively well documented that Rochdale haven't been the best off financially for a good little while. And I said that, and you'll notice it now with the press coverage that you'll get, and all of this, even the press coverage that Torquay have gotten today. The people who are almost, higher up, they don't care. Bluntly spoken, they look like they don't care about clubs until it's too late. Like, you would have never heard about what was going on at Reading if it wasn't for the fans. You wouldn't have heard about what was going on at Rochdale if that statement hadn't come out and been so bluntly put. At the end of the day, unless you're a mainstream club that is bringing in loads of revenue, it's really difficult to actually, justify and build yourself to a point where you can progress as a club. And it's really scary, because the more that time goes on, you'd imagine the more you'll see these clubs be in this situation, because the module of ownership doesn't benefit lower league clubs. The module of the kind of world we live in, and the costs for even just the Premier League and all this other stuff, doesn't benefit lower league clubs. We were talking about it on the last show in terms of just the money divide, and we spoke about it in the group chat a little bit, that 1 week of a Man United star's wage can cover 3 transfer windows for a club, or can cover entire seasons. To me, there's nothing benefits lower league clubs anymore. And you even go to the televised FA Cup games, them ignoring the lower league clubs.
Yep.
It really is difficult to just be even an owned club in League One, League Two, National League. It's difficult to just exist when you're owned, nor mind fan owned, unfortunately, and especially when on the pitch it's not going well, and you're making all these changes with managers, and you have to pay the compensation, and you're losing players for fees that you wouldn't imagine they'd be worth, or you're losing them for free. It's really tough to be a lower league fan. It's why I'm grateful to have my club at the end of the day, because we're at a point where we can look with optimism. At the start of the season, I was worried we were going to lose our club because we were fan owned and we had stupidly bad net losses. But we're quite fortunate to have the cup runs and have all this other stuff, which is why scrapping cup replays is something, again, that you can. I'm slightly drawing off topic of specifically Rochdale, but this is for future of lower league clubs. Nothing benefits us anymore.
Yeah, with the changes that's happened with with the Prem, how a lot of clubs used to survive is you'd bring young players through, and there was an avenue to sell them without getting ripped off.
Yeah.
and used to have a reserve side. I mean, back in the day, there used to be the old combination league that you played against, like, where Swindon is situated. You had Arsenal, Chelsea, and teams like that in there, where they would bring players in who were recovering from injuries to get back to fitness. Then you could have your reserve side and bring young lads on that would then benefit you as a club. And then you would be able to, if you get a really good one, sell him on to a Prem club or a top club at a decent price. But now you've got the Premiership sides that have got academies with 200 players assigned to that academy. So lower league teams have got, very little chance of getting players through. I mean, it can be done, but how many lower league teams they've got a reserve side that play in a competitive league? Not many, if any. In it all adds up, and it's all these little things where you could have got a benefit from, and it's all top heavy, and and you can. Sky is the issue with how much money they pumped into the Prem, and the Prem want to keep their money, and the top six want to keep even more of the money, that even with the other sides in their own league. It's I understand, and I don't mean this the same harsh. I understand you say like a Prem player is on more a week than a club has got a whole transfer budget, or they could run a whole season on. And I've seen people say, well, why aren't the clubs giving money to Rochdale, for example? In reality, that's not going to happen. And where would it end anyway? Because you get the counter argument that, well, if you've run your club into the ground, why should you be bailed out by a club that can afford it? I mean, we've had bad owners, and we've got issues with our ownership at the moment. There's a lot of unhappy Swindon fans with the way we're being run, and we're losing. Well, he's saying at least £1 million a season, and we've got one of the highest gates and highest prices in the league, and it's like, how? We've got a small squad. We've got bare bones of backroom staff and admin staff. So, you question what's happening with the money. Where is it going? Yeah. And you've got like the fit and proper test, but allegedly there are people at our club, that are behind the scenes, but not officially. So it's very, very difficult, and you're really lucky if you get a good owner that thinks of the club first and the fans, rather than I can buy this club, make some money out of it, and that's the only reason I'm in here. And it is so difficult for all us clubs down in the lower leagues at every level. When I read the other day, QPR have got losses of 20 million. What, how are you going to survive? How's that sustainable? It's just all across the divisions. It's, I don't know what the answer is. And it's really, really difficult. And you just hope, clubs like Rochdale, because it's not just the football club itself, it's the whole community built around it, and it affects people massively. That, football is part of our culture for millions and millions of people. And there's those that are able to get to games, and there's those that, for whatever reason, can't get to a game, but still support the club and still, want to see clubs survive and do well. So it's just a really difficult situation. And obviously, we hope that Rochdale get it sorted in Torquay. I mean, that sounds even worse, the state they're in. It's difficult situation for everybody.
The thing is, and this is me just saying it as bluntly as it is, I don't know where I'd be without my football club and being able to feel part of that community and have the connection with the players and everything, I don't know where I'd be. And the fact that none of, like we've said, nothing benefits us anymore. The academies of Premier League clubs, the facilities they've got probably overshine the facilities that a League Two first team gets. So, like, nothing benefits us anymore. And you understand why, because the 99% of the majority, 99.99999 continual percent of the majority would prefer to watch Manchester United over Rochdale, just because it's easier to access. You look at the standard of football and it's better and everything, but the connection that lower league fans have to their club is much greater than you'd ever imagine it being with a Premier League side. Like, I regularly talk to Newport players, I regularly talk to the staff and all this other stuff, and you see videos of people that meet Man United players, and they're acting like they've seen the next like president. Like, it's incredible to me, the kind of change in the change in popularity, and that's bluntly what it is, isn't it? It's popularity. The reason they chuck money at the Premier League is because of because it gets more money, and it at this point does probably go down more than, in terms of Rochdale circumstance, it goes more than football. It goes, where does the money come in?
Yeah,
and when you get that money, where do you spend it?
That's part of the craziness of it as well. I mean, the money from the top, it's mostly TV money, and actually, whilst it is handy for a lot of those teams, Sky don't care about those football teams. Like, what cares about the football teams is the fans. And it's stuff like what Sky have done to us is moving the game from a Tuesday to a Thursday, so then you've got to go on a Monday. Like, that's what Sky care about. They care about their viewing figures. So they're going to put those teams on that have got the demand, and they forget about the teams where, a little bit of TV revenue can make a massive difference. Like, the people that always suffer is the fans. And in this situation, the people that suffer is the fans. Yeah, the people who will be out of work for a bit will struggle because they've got bills to pay. We're all human. We've all got our bills. But, like, there needs to stop being so much impetus on football on TV, because really what's keeping the football clubs going is the communities. It's the people that put the bums on the seats, because without those people, the clubs are nothing. And I think that, unfortunately, that's the way a lot of the football is gone, that the money is in there because of the TV. And something he's doing about that as well. But in terms of, what Rochdale are going through, we've been through it. We were in administration like 2008, 2009. And it's one of the worst things to go through as a fan, because you can't do anything. You're hopeless. You there's nothing that you can do, and you've just got to kind of hope that putting that statement out, which was so bold, so raw, and so real, that actually Rochdale are being completely honest about, actually, like, we're up shit creek, and this is what needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. Like, you've got to hope that there is someone sitting out there that's gonna invest the right way in that football club, because, like, so many clubs are struggling right now, and that's not right. So someone needs to do something about that in general.
I entirely agree, and like I said at the beginning of this, I'm not one that was around when the original Newport, I believe we were Newport AFC at the time, or Newport FC, but I wasn't there when that club went into administration and went through liquidation and everything. But football is nothing without the fans. Newport County AFC, what it is now, it was saved by a few hundred fans of the original club that, got us formatted, and we were really fortunate to have the people that we had. We had a guy that won the lottery and all the Euro Millions or whatever it was called, and he helped the club out and all this other stuff. Like, the football is nothing without the fans. Newport wouldn't be a club today. Swindon wouldn't be a club when you talk attendances and all this other stuff. Stockport, Rochdale, and we're the only ones that suffer from mistakes higher up in the boards of things that we don't. Not only can we not control, half the time when you talk half these clubs, you don't even know what's going on higher up in terms of the board and what the decisions are with the money and where it's being made. Like, that when managers get sacked, for example, when they have long on their contracts, that'll take a hit on the compensation, buying players and everything, but you don't know where the rest of it goes. Like, some owners are really sneaky in terms of how they spend the club's money and how they kind of use it to benefit themselves. And it's why the fit for purpose or the fit and proper test or whatever it is bluntly spoke complete garbage that needs fixing. It needs looking through, because if we don't look through it, there's going to be more clubs all up and down the pyramid that suffer with it. It's not only lower down where you talk National League South, National League, but like Nick said, QPR, a 20 million loss. That's absolutely massive, and the supporters can't do anything to stop that. So you have to have smart business people that have the best intentions of the club at heart. And unfortunately, there's been too many people that have wiggled their way into clubs without actually having the intentions of the people that actually make that club run. So it's awful. It really is. And, I wish the best for both Rochdale and Torquay, because as bluntly put, there's nothing else you can hope for, is there? There's nothing else you can do. I know that a few fans, I think, was when Scunthorpe were in their worries, I think they set up like a GoFundMe or something along those lines, and whether that would be very beneficial for either or club could be a thing. But then you bring the fact up again of, should the fans have to spend their hard-earned money on mistakes that are made higher up in the board? But at the end of the day, like we've said, football's a community, and us as fans, we've got to do all we can to make sure those communities don't break down.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like we've got a squad builder kind of thing now, and that was how we brought Keaton Hayes in and things like that, because our fans have been putting money obviously towards the squad. But I just want to address as well, as much as obviously he has made his mistakes and he is to blame for just the inexperience. I know a lot of our fans, especially the younger fan base, are really against Simon Gage. But at the same time, he came and picked us up at a time where we were really difficult. He's put his hard-earned money into it as well. And obviously, I just want to, because there was a lot of people on Twitter as well who's like, oh, you need to change your owners, get him out, blah, blah, blah. And I think maybe if we do get an investment and we do need to go down that line, he's probably, with the lack of experiences he's had running the club so far, maybe he does need to step down. Obviously, get the money back. We owe him the money that he's put into the club. Fair enough, get that back. But I don't want to completely come on here, and I think I've been respectful as well, because to be fair, he's done a lot for our club, and I don't want to badmouth him. I've obviously said the things that I do think he needed to improve, but that's just due to him not doing this before, and obviously picking up the club at an awful time and trying to get us through, obviously, these times. So I don't want to fully blame him, because obviously he's not had that experience of running a football club before, and he's done the best for us. Because I know a lot of people have come on before and on Twitter, and they've been slagging him off left, right, and centre. But me, I want to come on here and just say my thanks of what he's done so far. And it doesn't look good that obviously we've had the relegations back to back, and some of it maybe because of these decisions and some of these appointments. I'm not saying it's not, but maybe we would have done the same thing as well if we've, you don't know, don't you? So you've just got to say, yeah, it is what it is. Now we are in this situation. We could be liquidated at the end of a month if these circumstances don't change, us fans, as much as obviously we have disagreements on certain things with each other, we don't fully agree. We've all got our own opinions on situations. We need our club. We want our club to survive. Obviously, we want Rochdale AFC. We want to still support Rochdale AFC, whether that's in National League, whether it's wherever. But I think we do need to come together and agree that we need to get out of this fan-owned structure now, because it's just not sustainable. And as much as some people may be stubborn to the fact because it's been like this for so long, I think we just need to come to an agreement now that our club needs to move forward. And if we don't agree on it, we've lost our club at the end of the day. So it's got to be that.
Football's a game of, football's a game of opinions as much as it is actually watching the game and enjoy it. And it's nice that fans have different opinions. But when you talk your owner, the majority shareholder, whatever you want to call him, in that respect, the difference between, I think, what he's done and you use Reading's owner, for example, in terms of what he's done. Your owner the guy in control, I should say, had the right intentions. He didn't go in with the intentions of benefiting his own pocket. And yes, in hindsight, you can look at it and go, oh, maybe he should have hired more footballing experience higher up on the board to help him out make these decisions. But at the end of the day, you can't entirely blame him, because it's not like he didn't try. He got things wrong, and it's very, interesting to look at things with hindsight and say he should have done this and he should have done that. But at the end of the day, you can't look at what he's done. You've got to look forward, and more than ever, I think, in terms of Rochdale, like you said, your fans do have to come together and decide, look, we either say no ownership and we lose our club immediately, like that's the blunt way of putting it, or we allow we roll the dice, we allow the chance for somebody to come in with the intention, hopefully, of benefiting the club and getting them back on track, as opposed to benefiting their own pockets. But it's weird to look at things in hindsight, isn't it? And
sometimes
you've got to look forward.
Constructive criticism isn't an issue, but an out witch hunt is just wrong, and it's not going to help at this moment.
It's the same with players, isn't it? Like, you can say a team didn't perform well, or if it was really, really bad, you can say, oh, these couple players maybe didn't perform up to speed. But then it's that, and then, go on a witch hunt about one player because they've had one bad game. It's like getting to a point where you're getting this toxic environment at your own club from, the top end down. At the end of the day, I understand that that everyone has the same intention of, you want the best for your club and everything, but there's a time and a place to be. I mean, there isn't really a time and a place, admittedly, to just be horrible without justifying it, but there's definitely a time and a place to be in agreement of, look, we may not all have the same opinions, but we want the best for our club. Let's not look at the past, and let's try and move forward.
Definitely. It's like there were people, this will be my last point now, by the way, I won't go on for too long, but there was actually people, I don't know if any of you saw my tweet, like, I was sad when it first obviously came out. I was really sad and everything, just wanted a day to just be sad and kind of mourn it, because when you see that, you think, oh no. And then I kind of...
I'll be doing the same.
I know. The next day I kind of reflected on it and thought, right, as a fan, and I don't care if anybody laughs at me, I put a tweet out, I was like, right, I need to try and do something. Like, what can I do? And it was like, try and get the word out there, try and get people aware of the situation. And maybe, I'm not saying a potential buyer will come off Twitter, but you never know who sees it. You never know what, like, important person from, like, a media
Social media
outlet.
is powerful.
Exactly. And I just thought to myself, do you know what? I'll put it out there. And I put, Dale fans, what other things can we do? And I had some people like saying, oh, we could do this, and this, kind of make sure you bring a friend to the next game, like make sure you drink in the bars and all the money goes to the club. And instead of like going home, like straight after the game, just have that one extra pint or one extra like soft drink to just try and put money into the club, doing things like that. And there were people saying fundraisers. And then there were people saying about protesting on the pitch. And to me, as much as obviously there's this situation going on, and I know it can be useful in some ways, but what are we really protesting about? Because the chairman is putting money in. He just can't put money in now because he's not got the funds. And he tried to make it where obviously these shares were available so we could stay fan owned because the fans wanted it to stay fan owned. He's put money into it. Obviously, like I've said, he's made decisions due to lack of experience. I've said that several times, but that's due to lack of experience. And I'm thinking, what are we actually doing a pitch invasion about? Because essentially, like, you've got these people at Reading, like, doing these pitch invasions and stuff, which you've got someone there to invade the pitch about and get it out there because he's done really bad things towards the club. But I'm thinking, Simon Gage, what has he done? He's made mistakes. Yeah, he's made mistakes, but he's put money into the club. Obviously now he's come out and said, like, I've not got the money. We need to get out of this route now of being fan owned because we can't sustain it. He's tried to go down that route, which the fans wanted. Majority of the fans wanted this. He's tried to do something about that. Like, you can't exactly do a pitch invasion, like having a go at this guy when he's just doing what us fans are saying.
It's not the right context to
It's not, is it?
be doing protests, no, and it's not actually going to benefit because you hear about, point deductions and fines for that thing, and the last thing you need is more money to worry about having to pay back. So I understand, again, it's in good intentions, but it's not the right context because he's not made the right decisions, but it's not like he's actively went out there to run the club to the ground.
Yeah. Just on this as well, Dan has also said protesting could worsen the situation. Pitch work. To be fair, if they ran on our pitch on Saturday, they'd probably slip on a puddle. It was that bad.
Did you see Bradford's? I'm sure that was worse.
I know, to be fair, it was. Jen, obviously, she's a Morecambe fan as well. And she's put, we are in the same boat. We can't do anything to protest on the pitch because it'll just affect the club. But we do have a match against Wrexham. That's all we can do right now. And to be fair, I agree, like, get it out there and stuff. Maybe, like, off the pitch, do, like, these, do different things and get it out there that obviously we want to change the structure, or we need investment. Like, get out there the message that we need investment, but don't really go and protest about someone when you're going to look an idiot, because if it comes back, like, if, say, like a social media or a media outlet or a TV outlet get that, it's like, who are you protesting about? A man, due to inexperience, just making mistakes, trying to do what's best for the club. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, the media would end up twisting it and make it sound like your owner's a horrible person, and then it's not going to want him to stay at the club, is it? And try and further benefit and further push this move. He's not going to want to do that if the fans are all of a sudden turning on him for, yes, things that are in his control to some degree, but some things that have just been out of his control and he can't really, afford to do.
Yeah, it's mental. I'm just hoping, obviously, it gets to a point now where we are just all in agreement and we think we just want this club to survive, and whether it means it has to change the structure. I've said it so many times, it just has to change. We can't sustain it. We've done it for this long, but obviously, like I said, the economy's changing. We're also not the best, like, we're not the biggest supported club, because you've got to think as well, we're in region of a lot of big teams. You've got your Manchester United, you've got Manchester City, you've got Stockport, you've got Oldham. Obviously, Bury still have a massive fan base, even though obviously they've the bad situation what happened to them. You've got Burnley, you've got Liverpool aren't a million miles away from us, Preston, Blackpool. All these clubs are just so close together.
I'll say you don't have Salford.
I know, I didn't mention them. Our fan base is bigger than them.
There you go.
But yeah, I just think to myself as well, like, we're not looking at aspect where we have that. So we just need to get out of this. I'm not going to ramble now. We just need to get out of it. And if you are a Rochdale fan, see this. And even if you do, like, you are like in the mode where you do want it to be fan owned, it has to change now. And that's not just from me, it's from a lot of Rochdale fans now. Times are evolving, and I know you've probably been there a lot longer than I've supported them, obviously from the older generation, and we obviously do respect your decision, but it's coming to a point now where it has to evolve to obviously make changes and sustain the club as a whole. So yeah, please do the right thing.
I think everyone that's neutral has the same opinion that, unfortunately, despite the older generation maybe want to stay fan-owned, the regime does have to change at the end of the day.
It's a club, isn't it, at stake now? So obviously it's what it is. So hopefully, I need to read obviously what Michael put in as well, and it does sound a bit more positive. And from the chairman's interviews and stuff, which I've heard today, it does sound like there is people who are interested in us as well. So hopefully, if it just has to get past this EGN now, which obviously people do have to vote, the shareholders, whether they want it to remain fan owned or obviously evolve into a different structure. So it just all falls on that. We've got a fans forum as well next week, which is actually live on YouTube if anyone does want to watch it. So obviously, I'm presuming the manager, the chairman, some of the directors will obviously have their say on the situation as well, and everyone will be able to see it. So if I do share that link on Twitter, please share that as well, everybody, in the chat, because it'd be very interesting as a neutral fan to watch that and just get a bit more of a background from the actual horse's mouth, what's been going on and what is going on. So yeah, thank you. And I'm so sorry it's been such a long show, but I just wanted to get my points across, and I'm buzzing I didn't cry. As much as my eyes were filling up, I'm buzzing I didn't actually cry.
No, well,
I got to a point thinking about
well,
how much I love football. I got to a point where I was like, oh, am I going to? Maybe. No. We held through a serious conversation, and there wasn't even a moth to disturb it.
I know.
A baby tried. No, it was very eloquent, very well put, and very heartfelt as well. And I think all a real football fan that's not a Rochdale fan wants is your club to survive. Like, people want to hear about it. People need to hear about it because, it's like we say, it's not just about a football team. It's about a whole community, about a whole group of people, about a whole coming together. And that, it's just so important that Rochdale are saved, Torquay are saved. Like, just, everything crossed.
Rivalries aside, you wouldn't want it to be your football club, would you? So, treat it with that same respect.
Just before we sign off as well, I just want to add on the fact I've seen a lot of things on social media as well, where there's been a lot of other fans like saying, ha ha ha, couldn't have happened to a better club, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to kind of say that, and I've seen a lot of other people, whether it's from Stockport's fan base, Bury's fan base, Oldham's fan base, there was a small minority of our fans who obviously said some nasty things, who obviously have been horrible about them clubs, obviously, and their struggles. And it was a little minority of fans. Like, I'm a real football fan. Like, I have banter with my cousins are Bury fans. I have friends who are Oldham fans. Obviously, you, Claire, and a few other Stockport fans I have on my social media. I class as friends as well. And we have banter on the pitch. We'd love to beat them and things like that. But all teams aside, and football clubs, I would never want anything to happen to those clubs. And I've had a lot of stick on social media as well, and people going on about Rochdale and saying nasty things. And I just want to say, every person, if you're we're linked to Bolton, Stockport, Oldham, Bury, I've tried to spread the word about your difficulties. I've put in money, obviously towards fundraisers, things like that. I've tried to help save your club as well in some way. So I'm not the idiot fans. We all, no matter what fan base you are, up and down the country, across the world, you have idiots who represent your football club, but you also have the people who know what football's about, who obviously
The small
support
minority
football.
get the say, don't they? They're always the front runners that you see.
Definitely. It's for clickbait as well, half of it. Half of it wouldn't actually say it to a Stockport or Bury fan or Oldham fan or a Rochdale fan stood in front of them. Half of them do it online for a few likes and a bit of clickbait. And I just wanted to reiterate that I'm not one of them idiots, and neither is anyone on this podcast. So we are real football fans.